You're listening to The Parenting Space, a podcast brought to you by parents and practitioners from the South London and Maudsley NHS Foundation Trust. A podcast where you can hear us discuss and debate issues around parenting and mental well-being. Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Parenting Space. Today I'm joined by the wonderful Sarah, who has agreed to talk to us about boundaries in the family home. Sarah, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Sure. I have two children, a 15, nearly 16-year-old girl and a boy who's nearly 13.
So parent to teenagers. I think this is going to be a very relevant conversation about boundaries. So are boundaries sort of like rules or household rules, or do they go beyond that?
I think they go beyond that. I think that's kind of a starting place. And certainly we sat down together as a family and talked about what should our household rules be. And we even wrote them out and put them on the wall. And the children decorated them and they contributed to them. So it was partly some simple rules about how we talk to each other, how we listen to each other. And also one of my children wanted to have, we play one family game a day together. It was a mixture of things.
And what's helped you as a parent to put these boundaries in place?
It works best when you and whoever you parent with and whoever is around your children a lot, like extended family, are all understanding and know really clearly what the most important boundaries are.
You're on the same page.
On the same page.
So something about prioritising and understanding each other's priorities as well and agreeing on those.
Yes, definitely. And that can take a little time to explore, but it really helps if both for your children to understand, so they're not constantly finding themselves on one side or the other of a moving boundary, but also for you so that you can relax and think, okay, no, we've got that idea in place. That's there. We all understand that.
And I really liked your description earlier of how you actually came together as a family and all sat around and did this together. Is that right?
Yes.
So was it also the case that your children were able to kind of suggest some rules or boundaries for the whole family?
Definitely. They're very clever at noticing when you don't follow a boundary or you don't, you do something different from what you're saying. I didn't realise that they really enjoyed our family meals together, time for everybody together as much as myself and my partner do. So they were very keen to make sure that adults didn't have phones or screens on at that time. They really got what it was about. And they knew about rules from school.
It wasn't a new language to them.
It wasn't.
But it was a case of agreeing in the home as a family what was important to all of you.
Yeah.
And all having ownership over it sounds like, and all really sticking to it in equal measure.
Oh, yeah. They'd be very quick if you don't if you don't follow. So if you have a rule, simple tidying up rule, clear up your own dishes, put them in the dishwasher or something like that, or move them to the sink, and you don't do it, they'll pick up on it very quickly. Everybody has to be part of it.
And for you, what's been one of the challenges of either developing these boundaries or maintaining them as a family?
I think particularly if you're tired, if you're worried about other things, if you're stressed, if you haven't slept enough, all of those things can make you much more reactive and stop you being calm enough to be able to use, be fair and firm, and instead of just reacting to things. And sometimes if you're in a bad mood, you can take everything so personally. And actually, children's behaviour, we often think, they're deliberately doing that. They're deliberately trying to push me or manipulate me. They're doing it for some kind of reason. There's some kind of need there, or there's some kind of teenagers wanting to stay up later and disagreeing with your opinions or having their own way of doing things. It's about them needing more independence and trying to explore having more independence. So they're not deliberately disagreeing with you all the time, but there are many instances when you forget that or you are pushed in the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think it's something that everyone can relate to. It's, what it feels like to try and put these boundaries in place when you might be stressed, you might be tired yourself, and get a bit of pushback. What I hear you saying is there needs to be that moment of consideration for why is that pushback happening? I think we know that children push back on boundaries sometimes just to test them, to understand how firm they are, to understand how movable they might be. But sometimes there's also another need of theirs that they're trying to meet. And you gave that great example of independence, pushing back on that boundary because they're experimenting with being a bit more independent, and they might be growing out of an existing boundary, and that might need to be updated. And it sounds like you've gone through that process with your children, the kind of renegotiation of rules. What one piece of advice would you give to parents who are kind of going through this at the moment and trying to put this in place in their home?
I think be kind to yourself. Know that when it doesn't work, it's okay. You can try again. If it's important to you, remember they're not going to not like you forever. They're not going to hate you forever. And in fact, my daughter did once say to me, in about second year of secondary school, she talked to me about, oh, Mum, you have all these kinds of things that you're much stricter than a lot of my friends' parents. They're allowed to do whatever they like. And I thought she's going to start asking to do something. And then she said, and I really like it because it shows you care about me.
Oh,
wow.
Wasn't expecting that. What a lovely thing to say and to hear as a parent. What a validating statement, and what a lovely note to end on. Sarah, thank you so much for coming in to talk about boundaries today. We really hope to have you back.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to The Parenting Space, a podcast brought to you by the CAMHS team at South London and Maudsley NHS Foundation Trust. If you need support after today's discussion in the podcast, please talk to someone that you trust, or follow the links in the description to get general advice and support. The Parenting Space is available on all podcast platforms. If you'd like to hear more discussions like this, subscribe to our channel and you'll receive a notification every time we release a new episode. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, let us know your thoughts over on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. You can find us at theparentingspace_official.